Here's your Sunday morning kick in the Gortats. I'm Mike Fisher, your trusty and trusted reporter. It's Super Bowl Sunday, Eagles versus Chiefs. We've got you covered at cowboyscountry.com, all things Cowboys and NFL. We've also got you covered at BetUS. Thank you, BetUS. And thank you to 73,000 fish heads in Cowboy Nation for playing along with us. Oh no, the Cowboys just did it again. When we go back to the trade deadline, we had ESPN's Adam Schefter making up a story about how maybe the Cowboys are having trade talks involving Micah Parsons. And we called him and them out for that. It was nonsense. Never happened. The quote from Schefter a couple days before the deadline, maybe we should call the Cowboys to see if they would trade some of their players. Maybe we should check to see if they'd be willing to move on from Parsons. But those are the conversations that are going on. And there were no conversations. And we watched and watched and watched and waited for ESPN to follow up a couple days later when the trade deadline came and went to write their story about the conversations. They didn't. They couldn't. There weren't any. Fast forward to Super Bowl Sunday. And along comes the highly credible Ian Rappaport and the highly credible Tom Pelissero. And in a notes column on NFL.com, they write, no, the Cowboys have not had trade talks with other teams, but they have had Micah Parsons trade talks among themselves in the building. Diddly diddly dink. And away we go. Back after the trade deadline, when Jerry was asked about conversations regarding trading Micah Parsons, he said with unusual clarity, there was no corn-pone, honky-tonkin', Little Rock, door-to-door salesman, hustler, jibber-jabber. This was straight dope, no bullsh. Jerry's answer, no, absolutely not. We want Micah Parsons. He's integral to our future. We haven't had one conversation ever about not having Micah Parsons on the team ever. Now, as I said then, what I hope he meant and means is we haven't talked with other teams about it. It's perfectly okay to talk about everything inside the building. I'll get to the problem with it in a minute. But it's perfectly acceptable. In fact, we should encourage the Cowboys to be looking under every rock and looking around every corner, as we do often. Micah, meanwhile, has talked very openly about taking a hometown discount if it helps the team cap-wise. And his latest push is urging Jerry and Steven, hey, go trade for Myles Garrett, and I'll take less to make that happen. That is a form of leadership. And even before the Myles Garrett possibility, Myles Garrett, Cleveland Brown superstar pass rusher from Arlington, grew up wanting to play for the Cowboys. They can do it if they want to financially. Even before the Myles Garrett thing, Micah was saying this out loud. I don't need $40 million a year necessarily, making me by far the all-time highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. I want to work with the Cowboys. I want to work with Jerry. I want to make it work. I'm Cowboy for life. His reward for that is that this story about the Cowboys having a discussion in-house here at the Star about trading Micah Parsons, going public with that, with a whisper to Tom/Ian, is Jerry and Steven's wildly inappropriate slapback. And they don't mean to be slapping Micah by saying this, by whispering this, by being at the Super Bowl party on Friday night or the Super Bowl party on Saturday night and bumping into Tom and Ian and having a couple Johnny Walker Blues and a few too many Johnny Walker Blues, and the next thing you know, we start blabbing. Here's what Ian and Tom write. While there have been no trade talks, meaning with other teams, sources say there have at least been some internal discussions about whether to A, pay Parsons 34 million a year, 35 million a year, 40 million a year, versus B, trading him for a king's ransom. And if the Cowboys are willing to listen to trade offers, Rappaport and Pelissero are right, the Cowboys may get it. Oh, they would. The going rate, the high going rate, is 2 first-round picks. That's the Khalil Mack Chargers-Bears deal. Sidebar problem number 1. If you trade Micah Parsons for 2 first-round picks, first of all, is that enough? No team has 2 first-round picks in this single draft, so you will get a first-round pick this year and a first-round pick next year. Is the team you're trading him to, do they have a top 5 pick? Top 10 pick? Or do you end up with the 28th pick in this draft and the 26th pick in next year's draft, which isn't enough? Furthermore, along these same lines, trade Micah Parsons and only get for this year's team a first-round pick, and if you don't go buy 8 starters, you will be worse than last year. You can't trade Micah Parsons and then not be aggressive elsewhere and be as good as you were. You subtract Micah Parsons from your team, you're worse than what you were. And don't start on the top-heavy thing, because that's what Stephen will say here. And I'm sure when we talk about Stephen's internal discussions with Jerry and McClay, I guarantee you that comes up. What if we're too top-heavy? Maybe we need a more balanced roster. And then, you're getting ready to watch the Eagles play the Chiefs, and you're going, they don't have a balanced roster. They got a loaded roster. They're paying guys who are in the Super Bowl again. The Chiefs accumulate talent. They're in the Super Bowl again. If you want to bet on this game, by the way, and invest in your own brilliance, go to BetUS, betus.com. Use the promo code YouTube150 and get 150% off your investment in yourself up to $2,000. Tell them the fish sent you, betus.com. So, problem A is, if you trade Micah Parsons, you will not get enough to help you be better this year. Problem B, well, what about the future? If this is about the future, and you are going to strip this team in 2025 of the chance to win around Dak Prescott, why did you sign Dak Prescott? You will have set yourself up to ruin yourself for the 2 years before you can release Dak Prescott. You will have 2 years of not a good enough team if you've traded Micah Parsons and then don't spend wildly elsewhere. And the number 3 aspect of this is, I guess this would be C, if you think top heavy's bad and you think paying Micah Parsons $40 million a year is bad and top heavy, that you shouldn't do that as a matter of course, why in the world did you sign Dak? Why in the world did you sign Lamb? If you think that you'd rather have 2 first-round picks than have Micah, then you'd probably rather have 2 first-round picks than have Dak. And you'd rather have 2 first-round picks than have Lamb. Again, using big, fat, round numbers, trade all 3 of them and get 6 first-round picks. If you want a cheap rebuild. For years, I've hesitated to use the word cheap, but here we sit. If you don't want to sign Micah, then you shouldn't have signed Dak and Lamb. If you want to trade Micah for a, quote, king's ransom, then you should have done it with a guy in Dak Prescott who's a lesser player. And you might as well have done it with a guy like CeeDee Lamb, who's a similar level talent. Remember that Stephen Jones, and he was talking to Ian in this conversation too, back at the NFL owners meetings in Dallas, he did mention then, and got in trouble for it, the downside of investing so much money in just a few players. Created a spitstorm. And then had to spend the next week crawfishing, making sure that it was pointed out. Oh, I never said that. What I said was, quote, I can't imagine there's a scenario where he's not wearing a star in his helmet. And Stephen did say that too. And then Jerry has to go on the radio and go, we never said anything like that, even though Stephen just said it. And now somebody's saying it again. If you listen to Jerry, Parsons is scheduled to be Dallas's next big signing, following the Dak and following the Lamb. The Cowboys say they view him as foundational, and so do I, and so do you, and they should. And he figures by next fall to be the highest paid defensive player in NFL history. The way the Cowboys do this is they talk all this talk, and then in the end, they sign their superstars. So I don't think there should be grave concern that they're not going to sign Micah Parsons. Missed 4 games this year. Still finished among the NFL leaders in sacks, tied for 5th in the league and 1st in the NFC with 12. Hit double-digit sacks again, putting him in a very exclusive group with guys like Reggie White and Derek Thomas, recording at least 10 sacks in each of their first 4 seasons. Trade that? 25 years old. Trade that for a king's ransom. And a king's ransom is 2 first-round picks. That's it. That's as high as it goes. Here's the most troubling thing about this story to me. It's not that they're thinking about all their options inside the star. That's a good thing. To be thinking about everything is a good thing. The downside to this is, why are you whispering this to NFL.com? And there's only 2 explanations, and they're not good. And there's one offshoot, and it's not good. Somebody either had too much to drink at the Friday night party, or the Cowboys ownership did this on purpose, leaked this on purpose. So on Sunday morning, it would be a gigantic media blockbuster story with Mike Fisher at CowboysCountry.com writing a headline, Dallas Cowboys blockbuster trade of Micah Parsons being discussed internally, which was the phrase that Ian and Tom used, discussed internally. So somebody blabbed when they shouldn't have blabbed, or almost as bad, somebody blabbed because they wanted the Cowboys to be above the fold on Super Bowl Sunday. The offshoot of this, I just checked Twitter. Micah hasn't responded yet. He will. And now you've got yourself another full-blown controversy created out of thin air. A conversation that the Cowboys should absolutely be having inside the building is now a conversation that the world is going to have. To the continued success of the Cowboys as a PR machine and to the detriment of the football team. Enjoy your Super Bowl Sunday. We'll be around all day, of course, here and at CowboysCountry.com. Thank you to you and to BetUS Fish. Out.